This is a custom gaming and workstation PC built by Haste Repair, all packed into a Cooler Master Box PC case that ships with two front RGB fans that are controlled using the reset button, and a little RGB controller that ships with the case, which is nice if your motherboard doesn't have an RGB header, so heads up to that. On that note, this build contains an Intel Core i7-3770 4-core 8-thread CPU at 3.4 GHz, MSI GTX 1060 Gaming X graphics card, 6 GB GDDR5 memory, pretty solid choice, and it's packed onto a motherboard manufactured by MSI called B75MA-P45, and there's also 16 GB of DDR3 1600 MHz RAM, and I installed 3 times up here RGB case fans. Those are just solid flashing RGB. You can't control that like you can the front panel RGB fans, but that's okay. And that's an up here CPU cooler that has a blue LED fan. Temperatures and thermals are actually really good in this case. On the back I/O of the motherboard, we have older style PS2 port for mouse and keyboard, USB 2.0, USB 3.0, RJ45 Ethernet port, audio ports, and on the graphics card we have 3 times DisplayPort, 1 times HDMI, and DVI. And that is the 650 watt Corsair modular power supply to power it all. So how does it game? Of course, you gotta know. Pretty good. This is Doom Eternal on high graphics settings, and we're getting a mixture of, so we're dipping below 100 frames per second and then getting up as high as 120 frames per second depending on what's going on the screen. Apex Legends on higher graphics settings, we're averaging between 55 to 80, 90 frames per second. Of course, you can get that higher if you adjust. I just same deal. I kept the graphics settings a little bit higher just because it looks good and still plays really well. Yeah, averaging 60, 80 frames per second. Skater XL looks really nice, and we are averaging over 120 frames per second solid. This is a game that you can also activate VSync on. I don't believe that you really need to have those high frames per second, depending on what type of monitor you have. I will note that I'm testing everything on a 60 Hz 1080p monitor, so I do make adjustments accordingly. And I wanted to test out Shadow of the Tomb Raider, more graphically intense game, and this is with VSync turned off and the graphics settings set to high. And I noticed some screen tearing, so I turned VSync on, and it might be hard to notice, but I did see that there is noticeably less screen tearing, and this is another game where I don't think you need to have necessarily high frames per second to still enjoy the experience. And as I stated before, this is to adjust to my 60 Hz 1080p monitor that I was testing on. It does look really nice though. Rise of the Tomb Raider benchmark offered really good results, which I have no problem playing this game. And just to keep the Tomb Raider ball rolling, I decided to benchmark Tomb Raider 2012, and yeah, this game looks awesome on this PC. And further benchmarks, I ran the Unigine Heaven benchmark on high graphics settings, and also tested out on ultra graphics settings. And coming up, we have the Unigine Superposition benchmark, and I'll show a still of the results here in a moment. So hopefully this gives you an idea of what you can put together on a budget and still get really good performance. Yeah, have a nice day. Hopefully this helps you out.